Hello everyone, and welcome to the very first video on the Judman Talks Music YouTube channel. My name is Pete, also known as Judman. Big lover of music, as you might expect. Electronic music, jazz, and Australian hip-hop mostly, which I know is a weird mix. I was a part of the Monstercat community for a large amount of time when me and my friend Mika had a YouTube channel that you might have heard of called MC Reviews, where we had a podcast. I reviewed a bunch of old EPs from like 2012, which was not a particularly pleasant experience. It's been a long time since then. That was like 2016, 2017 when we did all those videos. And after a long hiatus, I really just felt like for a passion project, making some videos again. I'm probably just going to review EPs and albums that I enjoy. Might as well just get into the first one today, which is the URCA EP by Gent, who is pictured here with his beautiful, glorious mustache. Gent is an Australian artist. I'm Australian as well, so it's always nice to see other people from the same place as me. I've known about him probably about the same time that I was doing the MC Reviews YouTube channel stuff. I think Mika was the one that actually ended up finding him first. The album that he always gushes and goes on and on about was his Stories to Tell EP, which I believe was released in 2016, but I didn't actually do the research on that, so you'll have to look that one up yourself. But the EP I'm going to be talking about today is the URCA EP, which was released on Monstercat on the 3rd of December 2019. It features 5 tracks. Apart from this EP, in fact a bit before it came out, I randomly was thinking about Stories to Tell and wanted to see what Gent was up to, you know, currently, and I actually discovered the EP HTTP EP and slowly listened through all that and actually really came to like it. And then almost as soon after I discovered that, he immediately started releasing music on Monstercat with his first single, which is on this EP, Time Voyage. So I do have a decent background of hearing his music and was excited to see an EP. I'm going to run through this track by track, probably spend a couple of minutes on each, and then at the end talk about it as a whole package, and that's probably the format that I'm going to go on with going forward. Let's just get right into the first track, URCA. URCA is absolutely my favourite track off this EP. Mika is not someone who thinks as highly of Monstercat as he once did. I also don't, but he has a particular distaste for it. If I send him any music that's got the little Monstercat logo in the corner, then his expectations automatically get quite low. And even Mika, someone who dislikes Monstercat a significant amount, enjoyed this song a very large amount, and I think it is far and away the best track on the EP. It features Olivia Grace, who is the vocalist that opens the EP and closes it as well, which I think is very well done and very appropriate. It's, as you'd expect from Gent, it's super atmospheric. Something that I'll go on and on about throughout this EP is just the way that he uses strings and piano in such a beautiful way to contrast the typical like heavier electronic sounds that he uses. And this track is easily the best example of that. It's got a very atmospheric and spooky introduction with Olivia Grace and just very spacious, really sets a spooky atmosphere. And then it goes into this luscious string and piano section, and it just switches between beautiful but also haunting at the same time. And the intros in like basically every single song on this EP are just phenomenal. After the intro, the first drop of this song, it's really good. I really like it, but I think for every song on this EP, I'll probably end up saying that the intros are the strongest part of the song and the drops are good, and this first drop is really good, but I don't think it quite lives up to the amazing scene that's been set. And it gets a bit more, it's beautiful, but like a great mix of instrumental and electronic, but of course you get to the drops and it sticks very much to this, you know. It's electronic dance music and it feels like it has to stick to that, which in a way I feel can hold it back, but I still think it's very enjoyable nonetheless. The midsection of this song, which has this amazing drum fill that I'll probably I'll play a clip of right here. It's so good. and sets the creepy tone again, which I think is done so well with the piano scales that happen throughout the song, which I'll probably also, play an example of that. It's an amazingly atmospheric track, and the vocal performance just lifts it so much. The second track off the EP is Open Spaces, which was Just a Gent's second Monstercat single after Time Voyage. It features Nev, which is an artist that I think she's very talented, but I think the way she's used in a lot of, especially Monstercat singles, is very the same kind of poppy style every single time. And I just think she has a lot more potential than that. But obviously I don't know enough about the writing process to say whether it's how she writes or just the tracks that she's put into. But I just think she could be used better. And I think this is honestly, it's a good vocal performance, but I think it's an example of that as well. It's just not much about the writing or the melodies really stand out. The track shows a lot of potential, but I'd really struggle to say that it's any more than decent for the most part. The intro, of course, I'll say this for every single track on this EP, that it's super atmospheric. It's got a spacey atmosphere, as you'd expect. It's so beautiful, but it really, unfortunately, loses it after the first verse section, when it goes into the pre-chorus. That's when it starts. So even what the vocal performance as well as the instrumental is really gorgeous, but it really just goes back to that poppy generic style after the first verse. And for basically the rest of the track, it's a good, enjoyable track, but it turns from something with a really nice vibe and a nice atmosphere to largely a quite generic house track. The drop is quite nice. It's got this very strong, contrasting rhythmic unison, like things will be floaty, but then everything like comes together in a very choppy way, and it's very satisfying to listen to without ever being like too overbearingly heavy. It's a very soft track, so you definitely wouldn't want to have it get too heavy, and it does a very nice job of keeping the balance of having some impact, but not in a way that involves using super heavy sounds, and still manages to keep the vibe that the song is going for. The second half of the song, there's really not that much that changes, honestly. The second drop has, a few extra little accessory vocal lines, which you'd kind of expect from basically every song ever written. And just because it doesn't change very much in the second half, I'd say on top of the fact that it's a rather generic track in a lot of ways, the fact that it doesn't change very much in the second half really kills it for me, just because it just doesn't keep me engaged. It's a good song and I can respect it, but I don't think it's anywhere near as good as some of the other songs on this EP. So that brings us to Time Voyage, which is the third track. It was Just a Gent's Monstercat debut, the first thing that he ever released on the label. I had no idea what to expect, but I fell in love with this song well before the full EP came out. Of course, you'd expect atmospheric, gorgeous intro to the song with the same strings and piano contrasting with this kind of future-based line that basically goes throughout the whole track. And it just does a super, super good job of setting this beautiful atmosphere. The vocal performance from House Key, I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced, it is easily one of the best aspects of the song. It's not overbearing. Every song on this EP has a vocalist on it, but I think apart from URCA, I think this is definitely the strongest vocal performance on the EP. The first drop is definitely the weakest aspect of this song. It's good, but it's just that same future bass loop that we've been hearing for like the entire song, with a melody that just unfortunately not especially interesting. But the second drop remedies that completely, where it switches from like a future bass style, goes completely into house, has the same like synth leading the melody, but the melody that it has is much more interesting. But the drop is just so short, it's over very quickly, and I wish it was just a little bit longer. But the ending is fantastic as well. It commits more to the house style, adding a lot of the hats and things that surprisingly aren't present in that second drop, but it also contrasts that committing more to the house style with the strings and the piano and all that as well. And it's really just everything about this song is just gorgeously contrasted from one bit to the next. The fourth track from this EP is Iris in the Dark, featuring McCall, and honestly for me, it's probably the weakest track and definitely the one that I've got the least to say about. Of course the intro is engaging. I think I literally will say that about every single song on this EP. I actually think this one has the best build-up. I think my favourite part of the song is the build-up to the drops, but that unfortunately lets me down because I actually find the drops to be relatively weak in my opinion. They're definitely not terrible. They do nothing like wrong, but they don't really do anything right for me either. The style that it follows is the beat's pretty weak and it's just not especially interesting or engaging in any way to me. I do appreciate the fact that it like starts off quite vocal choppy but then goes to the synth, but it's just very flat and very empty, and it just doesn't end up going anywhere. And unfortunately the worst thing about it is the second drop is almost exactly the same thing. It's slightly different in like the first bar. It's not a terrible song, but I just don't really think it does anything right. And apart from when I'm listening through the whole EP, it's definitely like one of the tracks I would never go out of my way to listen to. Final track of the EP is Wings, which, as I mentioned at the start, also features Olivia Grace, which did an amazing vocal performance on the first track. This one is fighting with Time Voyage for second place for me. I think just because of my prior love, Time Voyage probably beats it out a bit, but this song does a lot to compete with it. I think it's got a much more spacey atmosphere than the other Olivia Grace track than URCA, but I also think that her vocal performance really takes center stage more than, even though every single track on the EP is very vocal heavy, I think this is definitely the one that really lets the vocalist take center stage the most, and she absolutely nails it here. It's gorgeous, and the way her voice like slides up and down in pitch in certain sections, and it's never like loud and overbearing. Her tone is always soft and laid back, but it's just super powerful in its own way. The track really knows how to be really powerful while sonically actually being quite quiet. My favourite part of this song is actually the first section where the beat comes in. I'll definitely play a clip of that here. It's very unusual because it's house, but it's a bit slower than house, I'm pretty sure. But usually house music, it's usually got, you know, the kick on 1 and then that click on 2. But this one actually has the clicks on 3 as opposed to 2 and 4. And it really creates, like, I haven't heard a song do something like that before. And I think it definitely does something to add on top of the gorgeous piano and the atmosphere that comes through all of it. The only thing I'd complain about in this song is the second drop is as its own thing. It's really good, but I honestly kind of think it feels out of place in this song that's been very laid back and quiet the whole time. Like, I know it's supposed to be the big climactic finish, but it doesn't really commit to the spacey atmosphere as well as I would have liked it to. It actually feels like something that would have come straight off the HTTP EP, but I just don't think it fit as well with the atmosphere here. But that's basically me nitpicking at this point, because as I said, I think this track is super, super awesome. That's the EP. To give my overall thoughts on it, I think it's a very strong package overall. I think it's definitely in the best EPs and albums that Monstercat released this year. Something that's always going to be a plus in any EP or album's favour is the fact that it doesn't have any bad songs on it. I would be happy to listen to any of these songs. I know I said I didn't find Iris in the Dark very interesting, but I still don't think it's bad at all. And when there's only one mediocre song and the rest are really good, I'm always going to be happy on a full listen through to deal with that track. And in the context of it, I still think it works. I just think Just a Gent's sound is so diverse within each track. The way he always balances building a beautiful atmosphere, the strings and the piano that no one else... It's not just the fact that he uses those instruments, but the melodies and the lines he writes with them are just beautiful. But the way he manages to mix that so well with electronic elements, and the fact that half of the time his sound is like beautiful strings and piano, and the other half it's like completely heavy and just very strange sound design. I think the balance of it is just done so well, and I think just like on HTTP EP, Gent just has this ability to take any genre and just add his own unique spin on it in a way that I don't think every artist can do. His style is just very distinct, while still most of the time committing himself to a genre, but making it unique enough that it often just doesn't feel generic. I think compared to HTTP EP, I think it's not necessarily stronger on a track-to-track basis, but I think this is definitely more coherent as a musical package, and just his use of strings, piano, and percussion always bring his music to another level. So I definitely think that this EP is deserving of a rating of an 8 out of 10. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully, if I can be bothered, I'll make more of these. This is definitely just a passion project for me. I don't want to commit to a schedule or anything. I'll just make videos whenever music, EPs and albums come out that I really think are worth talking about. Whether they're good or bad, we'll see. But thank you so much for watching, and hopefully there will be more videos to come.